Um, So welcome to tonight's junior parent meeting. My name is Rebecca Mullen, and I'm the counseling department chairperson here at Greeley. We are fortunate tonight to have with us a special guest speaker, Miss Robin Summers, Assistant Director of Admissions at Syracuse University. We look forward to hearing from Miss Summers in a few moments, but first tonight we're going to hear a message from the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund. Then we'll return for some brief remarks before handing things off to Ms. Summers. So I'd like to introduce the president of the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund, Kristen Mancini.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to speak to you tonight about the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund. My name is Kristen Mancini, and I am president of HGSF. For almost 80 years, the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund has provided financial awards to Greeley graduates who demonstrate a need to help pay for college. Some of our mantras are college is expensive and seniors helping seniors. In the spirit of each of those catchphrases, we work to fill the gap between other financial aid and the cost of college for eligible Greeley graduates and families. Two main points that I would like to make tonight. First, please consider applying to the fund if you believe you will have gaps in funding your college future. That is exactly what we are here for. If in addition to your junior, you have a senior or graduate, please consider applying for a grant. Applications are available on our website, hgsf.org. The fund awards grants strictly based on financial need, and all applications are kept completely confidential. Last year, through the amazing generosity of our community, we were able to award $500,000 to grant applicants. Our goal, again, with the help of this community, is to fill more of the need for qualified Greeley applicants. Second, I would like to encourage everyone to participate in our events and fundraising. Our fall campaign kicked off in November, and our annual spring benefit will be held on April 4th. And of course, we thank the Chappaqua School District for supporting the fund through the Spelling Bee, which was this week, and the Senior Musical. Please be on the lookout for notifications through social media and emails about ways that you can help support HGSF throughout the year. Please keep us in mind as a resource as you embark on the college application process, and visit our website, hgsf.org, if you would like to learn more or make a donation. Thank you, as always, to the generous community of Chappaqua families and students who continue to support both each other and HGSF's mission of ensuring that every Greeley graduate has the opportunity to attend college. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you, Kristen. We in the counseling office have had a very busy fall application season. You will hear some of those numbers in just a moment, but before we go there, I want to tell you that Greeley's success in this process is due in large part to our department's teamwork approach with each other, with our families, and with our students. We just spent time this fall, as we always do, working with our college counseling colleagues on our professional development to help our students be successful in this process. This included reviewing case studies of applicants at various institutions with the college admissions counselors. The college process at Greeley happens early and it happens quickly. I'd like to share a snapshot with you of last year's graduating class. First, you will see that 94% of our seniors applied through some version of early admissions, which I'm going to share more about in just a minute. Out of that large percentage, 49% of our students applied through binding early decision. This means that a student found a school that is their clear number one choice, and if accepted, is agreeing to attend that college. By December break last year, about 80% of our senior class had already been accepted to college, and that is before the regular decision deadline has even passed. That's right, by this time next year, over 90% of your children will have already applied to college. You'll also note that students apply to and attend way more colleges than the 30 or so that you hear about over and over. In fact, last year, seniors applied to 348 different colleges and universities and wound up attending over 200 different ones. And now we're going to play my annual Guess the Most Popular Colleges at Greeley game. So everyone, please be ready to put your answers into the chat, and we will see if you can guess the most popular schools. I'm going to help start this off, or we'll be here all night. So number 10 is Stony Brook. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to get us to number 5, and then I'll start shouting out the guesses. Cornell's number 9. So this is an order of the number of applications each school received last year. UVA, Wisconsin. Okay. Does anyone know the 5th most popular school? I'm going to shout out what I say in the, oh, I see great guesses. Maryland, Binghamton, Michigan, Indiana, Tulane. Excellent. Excellent guesses, everybody. Michigan and Penn State are rounding out the upper 5. Can anyone guess the 3rd most popular? Maryland. 2nd most popular? Syracuse, I see in there. Northeastern, Indiana. And the number 1 is, of course, Binghamton, which will get each year about 140 senior applications from Greeley students. Wow, you guys are getting too good at this. You guessed really, really well. I want to show you, as I said before, that our students wind up going to over 200 different colleges and universities. And this is a snapshot of where our seniors matriculated last year. Now I want to just go back briefly and talk a little bit about early applications, because so many of you are going to wind up taking advantage of this. So like I said, about 50% of our students last year applied through binding early decision. And that means that you found a school that you absolutely love and you are committing to attend there if you are accepted. This does give you a statistical advantage because it's giving the college a 100% yield rate. There are implications for financial aid, though, which we can talk about in the Q&A later on. Early action is by far the most popular way that our students apply when the colleges offer it. Basically, students apply early, they hear back early, but they don't have to make up their mind until May 1st. It's really nice to have heard before the holidays. And so lots of our students will do perhaps an early decision along with some early action applications at the same time. And then, of course, comes regular decision, and that deadline's usually January 1st, and students hear around April. So if you don't want to wait until April, it's a really good idea to apply through either early decision or early action. Okay, now I want to talk about junior year. Having just wrapped up the first quarter, there are some reminders we want to share about where your focus should be for the rest of the year. First, it's really important to continue doing well academically. An upward trend in your transcript over time can be even more powerful than a student's GPA. We also want you to remain involved in different activities and clubs so that when a college asks you how you spend your free time, you have a really good answer for it. You also want to start thinking about which core academic teachers from junior year you're going to ask to write you a letter of recommendation. Keep in mind, you're sitting in the class from now until June. You can help them write the letter. I will just share one little tip. It is really hard for teachers to write letters about silent students. So we really encourage you to be, active learners. We also want you to be planning when you're going to take your standardized tests this winter and then spring. And with that, I'm going to share a little bit about test optional schools. So when COVID came along, all of the colleges went test optional, meaning that they did not require SATs or ACTs. The majority of colleges have stayed test optional, and it is unlikely that many of you will wind up sending your test scores to colleges. What's happening is that because the only kids sending scores now are those students that score really, really highly, it's thrown off the averages. So when determining whether or not you're going to send your test scores to colleges, it's important to talk to your counselor and to look at score to see where the average accepted SAT or ACT score is, because unless your score is above the 50th percentile, we would not encourage you to send it. But that is something that we absolutely will help you with every step of the way. There are schools that have switched back And I put them on the right-hand side here. So the Florida State schools, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Purdue, just some schools to be mindful of. They do require test scores. So beginning on November 18th, the counselors are going to start working with our juniors in small groups to teach them about the college process. Some of the topics that we'll be addressing in this mini course include an overview of various post-high school options. We're going to teach them the most important factors in college admissions. We're going to walk them through how to fill out an application. We're going to show them how to use SCORE, and we're going to talk about college visits and really so much more. At the end of these sessions, we're going to ask students to fill out a junior questionnaire form. And we're going to ask them questions like, is there a part of the country you want to go to? Do you want to go to a school half the size of Greeley or 50 times the size? We're going to take their answers along with their transcript and whatever test scores we have, and we're going to prepare for a college meeting with our juniors and their families in the spring. Some families like to come in at the end of January, right when they begin. And other families would rather wait a little while later in the spring until maybe they have first semester grades from junior year or additional test scores. And we're happy to meet you at whatever point you're at. In that hour-long meeting, we're going to talk about a very specific plan for each individual student. So we're going to go over a list of colleges. We're going to talk about which teachers you're asking for recommendations, whether or not you're considering asking for an outside recommender. We'll talk about where we are with testing and answer all of your other questions. So we really encourage you to take advantage of that meeting. I really want you to leave this meeting tonight knowing that we are going to be with you every step of the way in this process. Later in the spring, after the college meeting, you're going to go out and start visiting colleges, and students will get help from us in learning how to write their college essay. Their English teachers are also going to be working on that with them. And then in the summer, on August 1st, I'll be sending out very detailed instructions about how to manage the step-by-step college application process. Into the fall, we have multiple opportunities for seniors to come in and get one-on-one help from all of the counselors. And we really, really love this work. We just wrapped up the seniors just a few days ago, and we're already gearing up to work with our juniors. And so now I am very honored to share a little about Robin with you. Robin Summers is the Assistant Director of Admissions at Syracuse University. She earned her bachelor's in psychology from Colgate, a master's in education and student development in higher education at American University, and a master's in inclusive childhood education from Syracuse University. She was a teacher for 10 years before moving to higher education, where she has been helping students achieve their dreams for the past 25 years. For the last 7 years, she has been at admissions at Syracuse University. Ms. Summers is one of the most highly respected assistant directors in higher education, and we are very fortunate to have her with us tonight.
Hello, everyone. Rebecca, thank you so much for that warm welcome. I am absolutely delighted to join you all tonight to get to talk just briefly about Syracuse University and then more specifically about the college admissions process in general. So just a little bit more about myself as well. Thanks for the amazing introduction, Rebecca. It's amazing to believe that I've actually been doing education for as long as I have, but it really is my passion, and I do truly love all of the age groups that I've ever worked with, all the way from first grade up until alumni who were 100 years old. So I really have done work with people of all different ages as I've moved along. But one of the things that I just wanted to share with you in addition is the fact that I am not only an educator, but I'm also a parent too. So for the parents on the call, I have been in your shoes as a parent of a recent graduate who is now out in the real world doing real world things, as well as the parent of a high school senior currently. So really in it with you all at the same time. So I'm hoping that I can give you some insights and from my perspective, not only as someone who's been in higher education, but also as a parent who's gone through the process as well. So I hope to spend my time just giving you a brief overview of Syracuse and letting you know sort of where I'm grounded right at this moment, where are we at Syracuse University, and how does that relate to a lot of the different questions that you're having? Because a lot of the things that I can put in more detail, I can talk about in context of Syracuse as well as just in general in context of universities. We'll talk a little bit about Horace Greeley and some of the specifics at your school that we look at from an admissions standpoint. Talk a little bit about admissions facts and myths. So some of the things out there that we hear often from people that we really, really kind of want to dispel a little bit or talk about what the reality is out there in the world of universities and colleges. A little bit further into what colleges specifically look for, and then starting to find that right fit school and developing your list. So talking just a little bit about Syracuse University and letting you know a little bit about my backyard right now. So Syracuse University is home to 15,000 of the most passionate, involved, dedicated, and very orange students. It really is all about the orange at Syracuse. It's a sense of spirit at this place that we've developed. And if you get to know our university, if you're able to come to visit or talk with anyone from Syracuse, hopefully you'll start to get a sense of that. We really are an amazing combination of things. We have the warmth of a small school, but the resources of a large university. We have a choice of colleges for our students. We have 10 of our 13 schools that are dedicated to undergraduate students. You have 200 majors, 100 minors to choose from at Syracuse, and you do have an incredible amount of choice with all of those programs. You can mix and match across colleges and really customize the choices that you're making. A couple of other things that are really unique to Syracuse are all of the things that you can do beyond the classroom walls. So whether that's research or internships, or even beyond the walls of the university. So we do have one of the largest study abroad programs in the country, and we really encourage our students to get that global perspective. We have exceptional faculty who will be there for our students all the way through their experience, but we also have amazing support for our students with their advising teams. And they do have career services advisors and advisors right in each of our colleges to really advise each student on their customized path along the way. Overall, one of the biggest things, though, that I love to talk about when it comes to Syracuse is just our students. We really have students from all over the country, all over the world, who are incredibly engaged in our community, really making amazing choices at getting involved and taking advantage of all that their 4 or 5 years on our campus have to offer. I'm really proud of the work that our students do in the classroom, but I'm equally as proud of the way that they embrace this community, become part of it, and make it their own. A couple of just details for Syracuse. Our deadlines are just slightly different for you. So we have early decision at Syracuse, and then we have regular decision deadlines. Our early decision deadline is November 15th for early decision 1. For early decision 2, as well as regular decision, that deadline is going to be January 5th. So we give you just a smidge more time to make sure that you have all of your paperwork in and have a moment to take a breath before you hit send on all of those materials. That's Syracuse University in a very, very brief nutshell. But I do want to spend a little bit of time transitioning to your context in Horace Greeley as you guys look ahead to see if Syracuse or other schools are going to be the right fit for your students. Just talking about the college admissions process and how it works, a couple of things that are really important to know about how we look at your students and students really how we read the applications that you're sending to us. It's important to know that all of us have great information from each of the high schools that we're looking at. Every college reads applications a little bit differently. At Syracuse, we read actually by school or college. So we are looking at it in terms of all the students who are applying to our Newhouse School of Communications, all of our students who are applying to our Folk School of Sport and Human Dynamics or Education, or all of our 10 colleges. Some schools will read, some universities will read by high school. So that's also a possibility. Whether your college is reading by high school or whether you're reading like we are by college, one of the key things that we do is take time to get to know each high school. It's critical for us to look at each student through the lens of their high school and what they have available to you. Each of us receives something from the high school called the school profile. And I've just given just a touch of the first page here as a glimpse on the website. Your entire school profile is available on your website as well. So it's great to kind of look and get a sense of Horace Greeley and what you have available to your students. When we read at Syracuse, we read holistically, and you'll hear that a lot about selective colleges. What that just means is that we look at everything that you send us. We read each application multiple times. We'll read every single piece of them. When we look at applications, one of the most important factors is going to be that central core academic record, of course. And again, we have this amazing profile to look at so that we understand the context of the application that we're receiving, the context of the student record that we're looking at. Some of the things that we're looking at are how many AP courses are offered, how many accelerated courses did the student take, what context, why did they choose those courses, what did they take, what did they not take, what were the different choices that they made. We'll talk a little bit more about that further down the road about course selection. We also get some information from the profile on any special coursework that's available at your high school that might not be available at other schools. We look at averages of SATs and ACT scores. So we get a sense of what students are coming out with for scores from your school. SATs and ACT scores are a small piece of what we're looking for. So it's really important to remember that those scores, in addition to asking the question of whether or not a college is test optional, test blind, all the different categories that they might have for looking at testing, no matter what, it's important to remember that testing is one small piece of what we look for. At Syracuse, we do super score. If you do happen to take the testing more than once, we will take the best pieces of each of those moments in time. It's important to also remember that SATs and ACTs are one moment in time. And we do understand that students' time is precious to them. So there is no expectation that we see multiple SATs or ACT scores from a student. Definitely recommend spending a brief amount of time on SATs and ACTs, and then really focusing your work on the main part of your core coursework. We get some information about the number of students at your school, and Rebecca talked about that earlier. And I think it's actually 99% now. I think I was probably looking at last year's school profile. So a large number of students at Greeley do go on to a 4-year option. At other schools, it's very different. So it helps to give us some context there. We also do get a little bit of information about each school's weighting system because every single school does that differently, right? So we're very much trying to create a level playing field when we look at grade point averages and just get a sense of how your student is graded at your particular high school. So it's important to kind of understand always within context when we're reading applications. When I talk about holistic review, though, we really do look at everything. So not just the grade report, but what other people have to say about your student. And they often will say in those recommendations some wonderful positive things that your student wouldn't even think to say or brag about themselves. So it's a great context for us as well. We look at the students' activities, of course. What do they spend their time on? What are their passions? We really want to get to know them. And then beyond that, the essay, also important, telling us deeper, more about themselves. Students, I have worked with many students, as well as my own, on working on creating your application. I think that it's incredibly hard to take all that you are and distill that down to a few forms on a website. So my only recommendation to you when it comes to you starting to work on your applications and looking at them is try to use each piece to tell us as much of your story as you possibly can. Because that really is our job as readers, is just to get to know you. And that's pretty much the holistic review process. So let's jump into a few of these myths and facts for you, because they're kind of fun to look at and think through. There are an awful lot out there, but I just picked a few that I thought might be most particularly helpful to kind of talk our way through. So we'll first start with outside the classroom. Really looking at sort of extracurriculars and what you do with your time. And one of the myths would be your extracurriculars should include the nonprofit you founded and your research on a cure for a rare disease. Okay. Clearly, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, right? The important thing is to do what you love to do, and let us know what those things are. We see students with all kinds of backgrounds. Some of our students are doing incredible research. Some of our students are founding nonprofits, but we have incredible students doing wonderful things in athletics, in music, in community service. We have students who have wonderful jobs that they're really dedicated to. We have students who work with family members, spend time caregiving. So all of those things are important to your story. There's no one thing that our college in particular, but many colleges aren't really looking for one particular thing on your activities. So please keep that in mind. Do what you love, be passionate about it, spend your time on the things that you really enjoy. And that will really come across well to all the colleges that you're looking for. Another myth inside the classroom this time. Always take the most rigorous courses available to you, no matter what. I would say that right fit for coursework at the high school is the same as getting the right fit for college, right? When students say to me, you know, Mrs. Summers, could you please let me know, should I take this class? Should I not take this class? That's really a great conversation for you to have with your families and with your counselors. Your counselors and your families know you best, right? The goal for students, I think, is always to find those courses in your high school that challenge you, but that you can also be successful at, and to find that right fit in that level. So that's just really talking about the best way to kind of use your time when you're at the high school level to prepare for what comes next, developing those skills, developing your writing skills, developing your thinking skills, so that you really are prepared for work at the college level. Another thing that I love to talk about is this myth. Colleges only take a certain number of students from each high school. At Syracuse University, we really don't count. We really don't count. We don't look. We're really looking at each student to see about their preparation, about their interest in our university, how they would contribute to our community. And we really don't count along the way. So if you're hearing from people, oh, they're only going to take 5 students from our high school, please be rest assured that we are looking at each student for their fit to our university first and foremost. Talking about the things that we prefer and that we're looking for as a college and as other colleges are looking at it. One thing that students talk about a lot is demonstrated interest. Demonstrated interest is just attending things, sharing some information with us, all those different ways that you touch a contact with a college. At Syracuse University, we do keep track of demonstrated interest. It is one small thing that we look at. it does just give us a sense of the likelihood for a student, were they to be accepted to the university, to actually attend. And a lot of colleges do track demonstrated interest. But I do want to encourage students that balance is key here, right? It's really important for you to get your questions answered as you move along through this process and to learn about the things that are most important to you for a college, that create that right fit, that create that place where you feel like you could go and be at home for 4 or 5 years at the university. So choosing the events and the ways that you connect with the universities that you're talking to will hopefully not be an overwhelming experience. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to communicate constantly with colleges to show demonstrated interest. You do want to connect with them. You do want to show some level of activity, but by and large, really the things that are meaningful to you that help with your college search are exactly the right things to do and completely enough. You don't have to do every program to show interest, just what's important. And one other quick note, test taking should always be prioritized over academics. And I really do want to encourage students also to have balance in this aspect as well. Colleges are not seeing the number of times. I mean, we can if you send us multiple test results, but for the most part, we really, really are focused on your high school transcript and your work in your academics and in the classroom over the course of a full semester or a full year. Um, and that's really one of the most important aspects when you think about testing and the balance there. Make sure that you're spending your time and your focus on your long-term classwork, junior year, senior year, and doing your best work and being at your best in the classroom first. Testing, I have found, and I know there's some statistics out there, but I have found the students who are taking testing more than 2 or 3 times are typically not significantly changing their test scores. So I encourage you, take the test, do as well as you can on that day. If you feel like you need to take it another time, do so at your discretion, but then focus on your academics and just enjoy all that you have offered to you through your high school career. I do want to talk just a little bit and show you some statistics that kind of relate to some of those myths as well, and particularly testing, but then all of the other things. And hopefully this chart will just give you a little bit more in depth about what colleges look like and dispel some of those myths for you. So this is from our national association, NACAC, which is our College Admissions Counseling Association. And this is from 2023, excuse me. But it just shows you as you look down that list, right? The high school grades, high school coursework is number one up there. And, you know, again, in context, the strength of your high school curriculum is something that we look at because we want to see, you know, what each student has available to them. So we look at in context. The essay the students writing, their interest in attending, but the numbers drop off rapidly at this point, and way down on the list, you're going to find the admissions testing scores. So keep everything real, keep everything in context, and enjoy the ride in high school is really the theme of what we're talking about. Okay. So lots and lots on the myths, lots and lots on the details and what we're looking for. But I want to talk a little bit about building your list and exploring your options briefly as well. And this is, I think, the funnest part of the whole process. I think Rebecca talked about this a little bit earlier and alluded to this, and I just want to sort of reiterate this concept of looking at your current experience. You can use your time in high school to kind of start to even identify what are the things that you're looking for in a college. So students, do you like the size of your high school? Is it large for you? Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed? Would you rather have a smaller setting? Are you excited for new opportunities? Do you love meeting new people? Maybe a larger setting is better for you. But even just looking at your experience right now, I really can give you some clues about things that you may feel comfortable with, um, and sort of start to build that list from. I encourage you to use all the tools that are out there, and there are many of them. Um, because of some of the things with COVID that we've developed, a lot of colleges have held on to some of those wonderful tools. And you'll find lots and lots of not only in-person opportunities, but virtual opportunities for visits, for tours, for virtual programs, virtual classrooms, virtual student engagement panels, all kinds of ways to really start to test out what it's like to be at different colleges. Social media, of course, there are lots of positive things on social media. Students that are posting information about a day in their life at their college. So lots and lots of ways, blogs, um, and YouTube as well, to really kind of dive deeper and start to get a sense of each college even before you step foot on them. My hope is that you will be able to travel and visit in person, because I do think that that's a different experience to visit as a student. And of course, at Syracuse, we love to welcome students to our campus as much as possible, but it isn't always possible or practical. And it may occur later in the cycle as well for you. So these tools are all there for really helping you build that list and sort of look at colleges and say, oh, that's exactly what I thought it was. I'm really excited about it. Or, oh, that's not what I thought it was. Or to just kind of realize what key factors are important to you along the way. So building a list. And I definitely recommend that you physically make a list, because there is a lot of information. And I'll talk a little bit about what you might put on that list to sort of capture and start to decide what are the most important factors for you when you're looking at a college. I'm a spreadsheet person, love my spreadsheets. My oldest ended up being an engineer, so he's right there with me with a spreadsheet. My younger son is all about the paper list and the list on his phone. So whatever process works for you, that's great. But build a list, keep track of it. Schools start to blend together after a while, and you want to make sure that you have all the details for each one, because they are slightly different for every college, as you find as you start to get deeper into the details. The other thing that I want to say, both to students and to families, is, and this, is something that I've learned not only as an administrator, but also as a parent, is that students really can drive this process. And I really encourage them to do so. Students, this is your choice, right? This is going to be the place that you live. It is your home for 4 or 5 years. Really take charge of this process. Be the one who's communicating with the colleges. Be the one who's looking at these details and aware of deadlines, and starting to get a sense of the different cultures at each university. I really encourage you to really, really embrace the process and enjoy learning what resonates with you. And lastly, just a plug to just keep an open mind, right? One of the key things that I always recommend to families when you're building a list is build a list of colleges where you would go and be comfortable at any single one of those colleges that you end up applying to. When you end up with that short list, to me, my recommendation is that that is your goal, to come up with a list where you would be happy at any of the choices on the list. And part of that means that you're keeping an open mind. Maybe you have a student that, or a college, I'm sorry, that really jumps out at you and you start to fall in love with it. But always remember that any of those colleges that are coming to the top of your list would be wonderful fits for you, ultimately. So have those top choices, but keep an open mind, because as the process comes through and you get all kinds of information back, whether it's about admissions, whether it's about aid or scholarships, all of those pieces are going to be very different, and each college is going to offer you something different. And you may be surprised at what your final choice is if you keep an open mind and find that right fit. Okay, so back to that spreadsheet for you. And just to kind of run through and provide just a little bit of a list of some of the things to consider when you're creating your spreadsheet, when you're starting to narrow your list, and you're going to come up with the individual factors for you. So this list just sort of goes through some of the specifics, some of the hard facts. What are the deadlines for you? What are the pieces of information that you need to provide each college and what's unique to some colleges? Because every college will be different about what they require you to do, whether it's a supplemental essay, whether it's 2 letters of recommendation or 1 letter of recommendation. Do you need a portfolio? Do you not need a portfolio? Do you have a performance evaluation? What are the different possibilities for all the things that are required? What are their testing possibilities and their policies? What do each of those policy mean? What are the different deadlines for decisions? Are there any additional forms for scholarships or aid that you need to fill out? At Syracuse University, we require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile because we give an additional amount of aid directly from the university, and the CSS profile drives that. Not all colleges require the CSS profile. At Syracuse, we don't require any additional forms for scholarship for merit-based aid. Some colleges require you to fill out a form or answer a small prompt or apply by a certain deadline for merit-based aid. So keep that in mind. Create your spreadsheet. It just reduces your amount of stress. Some of the more personal aspects, though, the size of the college, what kind of programs they have. Do they have the program that you're thinking at the moment that you're interested in? Do they have flexibility? What if you change your mind along the way? Can you add? Can you change? How does each school approach that? And then any other special university opportunities that are unique to that school or college that might really resonate with you. Ultimately, though, it's what matters to you most. And as you start to look at colleges, as you start to build this list, build your spreadsheet, you're going to start to see some of these factors pop up to you more and more and more. So you're, as students, and you're looking at these colleges, you're really going to start to see the same things, themes. And all of a sudden you'll start to think, for example, oh, I really, really like the rural setting of this school. I really like the size of this school. I really like that they have this program. And those things will start to pop up as must-haves, and then you can move them up in priority on your spreadsheet. So hopefully this is helpful to you to just kind of start thinking about the things that you can write down. The more that you write it down and keep track of it, the less you have to keep it in your head. And then you can just enjoy the process and start to learn what resonates most with you. So that's, I guess, really the message that I'd like to leave everyone with is just enjoy the journey. I know as a parent, I know having gone through this now almost twice through the process, that it can be stressful, but it also is a really exciting and joyous time. So just enjoy the journey. Give yourselves time to learn. Students, give yourself time to learn the process, but most importantly, what's important to you when you look at a college. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to. That's what we're here to help you with. We get all kinds of questions. There is no silly question. Please ask questions. Take small steps, but go at your own pace. You have plenty of time to do this. Take a deep breath, just break it down, and it will be completely possible to get through this. And also, there is a place for everyone. And that's part of that message that I said before about being flexible. Please know you will find a place for you that you will do well at and prosper and do wonderfully and be happy. So just breathe, enjoy the ride. I wish you all the best and thank you for having me tonight. I am just grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Robin. That was excellent. We appreciate you taking the time and doing this tonight and sharing your wisdom with our families. For everybody that's on, if you have a question or answer for Robin or for Rebecca, myself, something you want to know a little bit more about, you can put that in the Q&A. A couple questions have come in, so I'm going to just share an overview and then ask a question, and I'll answer the first one. The first thing that I would share with everyone is if you are sitting there and you are an only child, the oldest child, or if you've had older siblings that have gone through this, it is a little bit different year to year. So for some of the Wiley vets that have had 3 or 4 kids, maybe that have gone through the process. I think as you go through, you'll see some things are a little bit different. And the progression that we go through the group guidance classes to the individual family meetings and students being in and out, just as Ms. Mullen said, we're here to help you as you go through. One question that kind of came up, and this is something we find ourselves talking a lot about in the office with students, is what to do with the summer. For some students, maybe last summer, maybe the summer following their junior year, they have an interest and they may want to take like a writing class at a college, or they're going to be doing some work in the lab. Maybe somebody's going to be getting a part-time job, and they're going to be working. For me, all of those experiences, whatever it is that you're involved with and you would like to do, can be very beneficial and very rewarding. For some of our students, they like the idea of maybe being on a campus and doing a summer program. It's not a must, but we do have students that want to explore some of their paths of interest. I think for me, one of the things that I would just share with families is as you start to consider what you may want to do or what you're thinking about, you don't want to do something just to do it and then feel like you're checking off a box or you think it's the right thing to do. You want to have a little bit of interest, and there's got to be some reason behind it. Every once in a while, a student will come into my office and say, I'm supposed to be doing something, but I don't really know what it is. So I'm going to do this class here, or I'm going to travel and be part of a program or something community service, and for students, if there's something you're interested in, I think there can be real value in it. Maybe Robin, on your end, if you could just speak to how you view maybe a summer program of whether it's taken at Syracuse or Cornell or Michigan, Binghamton, whatever it might be. How do you look at that and view that in the process? If you want to take that one, Robin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it falls into somewhat into the category of demonstrated interest, in that it is one small factor. It really mostly tells us a little bit about where the students' passions lie. It kind of tells us more of the story. If a student's applying for a particular program and they did do a summer program in that, then it just shows us they really are truly very passionate about that subject already. It also, if they're taking a summer program at the college that they're interested in applying to, then that also kind of just shows us that they are learning about the college, and that they might, again, another point of demonstrated interest, that they're truly interested in that specific college. It's not a large factor that we look at, but it's always just a small piece.
Thanks, Robin. I just want to remind people, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Nobody can see your question except for the panelists, so please ask away. I do see a question from a parent. How can parents find out about which colleges are visiting Greeley and which our child is signing up to meet with? So we did just finish our fall season of having over 200 different colleges and universities stop by to meet with all of our students. And we love getting to, touch base with our college colleagues. It is pretty much wrapped up for this season. But you will be able to see next year on SCORE a schedule of which colleges sign up, and students can register for those visits right on SCORE. Parents, you'll have access to that as well, so you can see it. We're just reading through some of the other questions here.
So I have one here, Ms. Mullen. There's a couple of people that the comments that have come in about the topic of the essay. I think for us in the office and the admissions folks that we speak to that come in, we hear about the importance of that. The essay is an opportunity for the student voice to come through. And the question, and Robin, maybe this is one for you here, where you can speak to what are some of the best essay topics that you've read? Are there any insights you can share? And maybe a good way to answer, I'll add to that part of the question, is maybe you could share some things maybe to stay away from.
Yeah. The message that I was giving earlier, just really about trying to tell your story as much and as completely as you can. So one of the things that I would stay away from is really repeating what we can see in other places. You don't need to feel compelled to talk about the different courses that you've taken, unless there's something that you really want to do, like that small moment story, and really, really dive deep into that moment that you were working on a particular project or something. Same thing for sports, or any of the student groups that you might be involved with outside of the classroom. We can see your activities. I really encourage students to use those little descriptions in the activities area to tell us anything that's unique about that activity. But you don't need to give us a list of it disguised as an essay, because we can see that. And you really, can use that essay to tell us more about yourself. Some of the one other pitfall, and then I'll kind of go back to just some of the best essays that I've read. One of the other pitfalls too is that some of the prompts will sort of ask you about someone who might have inspired you, or you might want to talk about family or friends, or someone who you really look up to. It's really important that the essay remain about you, so that we learn about you. And it's hard when you're writing about someone else to do that. So it's always kind of important to keep that in mind, that we want to know more about you through this essay and hear your voice, and understand your personality a little bit more. Some of the best essay topics, and I'm really not sure that I can give specific ones, but the ones that make me smile or cry or whatever it is when I'm done with them, again, are just when students are just really willing to share something unique about themselves and their background. I have read essays about very serious topics that were wonderfully done and made me really feel like I knew that student, or a moment in time that they experienced, and I really felt like I was there with them. But then I've also read essays about absolute nonsense. And they were funny and warm, and just let me know something, surprising about that student. So the topic almost doesn't matter. We just really want to hear who you are.
So there's a question about when parents get access to SCORE. So parents were already invited last spring, actually, to join SCORE. So I will send out another invite in the morning. And if you have not already signed up, you can just click the link and follow the very simple instructions to get on SCORE. And then there's a follow-up question: how can parents get instructions? So on our counseling website, there are instructions from both the student perspective and the parent perspective of how to use SCORE. It's very simple and very user-friendly. And I'm sorry if you're like, what is SCORE? I should back that up and explain it. SCORE is it's the web-based program we use to keep track of all of our college data. And so students are able to pull down a scattergram for any college in the country and see how their GPA and test score matches up against other Greeley students who applied to that school. And then you can see the outcome: accepted, denied, et cetera. So it gives you a really quick way to get a sense of whether or not that school is a reach, a target, et cetera. Here's a really good question about when to ask teachers for a recommendation letter. So we would encourage you to do that much later in the spring. I think I start to hear buzz around April, May, and sometimes June. I do think you want to get a commitment from the teacher before you head off into the summer. And then when you do ask a teacher, you should expect them to ask you to do some things, whether it's filling out a form, a questionnaire, meeting with them, et cetera.
I have one here, Miss Mullen, that wanted to sort of pose one that Robin I'll answer, and then the second one maybe I'll pose, and then you can answer. The one question came up related to alums and being connected, and how does that come into play? I would say for the alumni offices and the connections, if your child had an interest in the school that you went to, I would follow up with the alumni office to see what they're doing. Some places and schools will do, a webinar, or they might talk about and discuss like how what goes into a good essay, for example. They might have things for prospective students and for children. It's been a little bit different over the last couple of years because some schools in the admissions process have gone away from being as alumni connected from the standpoint of the admissions, and whether that's shared or not. There are some schools that won't ask that and take that into consideration. Some still do. So I think that's school specific, and you want to check with the college. Robin, the question that I wanted to share with you just to get your take is a couple of questions came in about the financial aid process and sort of gaining an understanding of when financial aid awards may come out and how early decision, if I applied there, and how that would impact it, would I maybe not get the same money? And if you could just speak a little bit about the financial aid awards and the timing of that, and then how early decision may factor into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And every college does it differently. So I can tell you at Syracuse, that all of our students, whether they're early decision or regular decision, are considered for merit-based scholarships. Each college has a different process for that. And for financial aid, again, at Syracuse, our financial aid packages are provided, barring issues with FAFSA. They are provided within typically 24 to 48 hours of the decision coming out. So they usually come along very, very shortly within period of time within the right after the decision at most colleges that I'm aware of. So it may not be instantaneous, but it will be a very short period of time. For early decision, particularly if any of you have seniors this year, or if any of you had students who were applying last year with changes in FAFSA, there were a number of delays with the process. I'm hoping for junior families that all of that will be worked out and wonderful by the time you all get to this process next year. But there were some delays, and colleges did have to adapt their deadlines accordingly, and we always do. Everyone's in the same boat with that. So if there are any continuing minor issues with that, then all the colleges will adapt. But typically it's very, very shortly thereafter.
So there's a couple of questions about testing that I want to address. The first one is, what is the average SAT score for Greeley students? You can actually see that on our high school profile, and you can see the profile on the counseling website. Just look for school profile 2025. A follow-up question to that is, are the SAT averages for particular schools high because the schools were test optional? Absolutely. They are all very, very inflated. So in determining whether or not a student is going to send their test scores to colleges, they really need to go on to both SCORE, and they can go on to the college's own website and see what the average accepted SAT or ACT score was for that school, and then figure out where they fall in terms of the 50th percentile. And we absolutely will help students with that, no problem.
So I have two here. Couple of questions that are centered around the number of recs, and can you get an outside have an outside recommendation. Most students will ask two teachers because there's several schools that may require two. If the student is looking at a bunch of schools that only requires one, they may just ask for one. But I would say, generally speaking, most ask two teachers. An outside recommender could be someone that if I have a job and I'm working for someone, it could be a coach, it could be somebody from the community. Maybe I'm working at Neighbors Link and someone there. Whatever the case may be for an outside reference, that is something colleges will see. There are some schools that will turn around and indicate that they won't accept an outside recommendation. So that's something you would talk to us about, your counselor, and sort of walk through. There's a saying in admissions, thicker the file, thicker the problem. Like, why are all of these things coming in? So you don't want to get caught up in trying to send 4, 5, 6, 10 letters. It's not necessary. And admissions reps like Robin are left wondering, why can't they follow directions here? So we're mindful of that as we talk about that too. Another question came up just in terms of the college reps and the college rep visits. Traditionally, it is very busy for folks like Robin, particularly in September, October, and maybe the first week of November. Some of the folks are on the road for maybe 8 weeks, with once or twice coming back home. That is the prime season when they're out running around visiting colleges. They don't do the visits in the middle of the winter months because they're reading thousands and thousands of applications. And traditionally, when they hit the spring, they aren't necessarily back out on the road visiting the high schools again because they're trying to, get their class and make sure that they're on campus for accepted students day events and open houses and things of that nature. So for the students and parents, it's good to know that in September, October, when the colleges are here, it's usually filled with seniors, and the students are in a place and a mindset of they have very good questions. They've maybe been to a few of the campuses, and the visits are very positive and highly, highly encouraged. And we'll talk more about that at our senior parent meeting with all of you again, where we'll discuss that further and go over that again. And then the last one I had, Rebecca, before maybe you want to share one or two more as we're winding down, is in terms of scheduling the junior family meeting. As we kind of wind down the junior groups and the students get the junior questionnaire, there is a parent piece that's part of that. And we look for those to be submitted and handed in basically in January. And then we reach out and we connect with you, one of our secretaries, to then schedule a meeting during the school day at a time when the student is free and it works with your schedule. And they can be in person, a parent can be on the phone, we can Zoom, whatever works best for you. So typically we wait for the questionnaire to come in. A couple years back, the problem we would run into is we would schedule the meeting and then the student may not do it, and then it would be not as fruitful a meeting. So we started a number of years ago of getting that in and receiving it and then set up the meeting, and it's been more efficient and better for families, I would say. Rebecca?
Thanks, John. So there's a couple more questions about teacher letters of recommendation. And I love one of these questions. It's what type of courses should I ask a teacher for a recommendation from? There's one of the myths that you will hear over and over is one needs to be math and science and one needs to be humanities. That's absolutely not true. College admissions is really competitive. And what colleges tell us all the time is it needs to be the best two letters, teachers that can share really tangible things about what you're adding to the classroom. For example, I can always count on John Brennan to add to the discussion in the classroom, and he not only participates, but he allows others to feel comfortable so that they participate. Or John Brennan brings in outside information into every discussion. Whatever teachers can give tangible feedback to a college about you. Now, having said that, you need to follow the specific college's guidelines. So for example, MIT does say one of your core academic letters needs to be from the humanities, but most colleges will require one core academic subject or two core academic subjects, meaning the 5 cores: English, math, science, social studies, or world language. Also, that is something that we are going to be happy to talk to you about in your college meetings. We will help you decide what makes the most sense.
I have one last one here. Sorry, Rebecca. I have one last one here for Robin. What would be a conversation without AI, right? So, Robin, can you just speak to the question that was posed by one of the parents here is how are the colleges, and maybe you could speak to Syracuse, how are they using AI in the evaluation of applications? And I would just say, if at all.
Yeah, and my answer is it varies by college, right? But at Syracuse, we are not currently using AI to evaluate applications. We are still very much a hands-on process. Some of my larger school colleagues are starting to experiment a little bit with this. But the larger schools that have, hundreds of thousands of applications have had criteria for many years. And, they're just using more technology to kind of streamline that process. But at this point, we are not using it.
Thank you.
So there's a question actually from one of my students. Where do they get the junior questionnaire form? It's going to be accessible in your Canvas junior groups course when we start the junior groups on November 18th. And then one last, just I was on a tangent about teacher rec, so I'll finish with one more question about that. Somebody's asking if letters of recommendation can be from middle school or do they need to be from high school? They need to be from junior year, preferably, because by the time your student is applying, the college doesn't really want to hear about who John Dunphy was 3 years ago as a student. They want to hear about who he is now as a student. All right, and I think that looks like our last questions. I'll give it 30 seconds. Oh, Mr. Brennan has another one.
Just a closing thought. Robin, thank you again. We appreciate the time and you being here and sharing your information and wisdom with our parents. And thank you very much for that. And I think for families and parents, as you're beginning this process, just know it's a nice opportunity to learn about yourself, what your value, what your interests are, what you would like to do, and it can be really exciting. If you feel yourself getting a little bit stressed, whether that's the parents or the students, that's a good time to reach out to us. We're here to help you. We have a lot of experience in the office. We talk all the time, and we're here to help you any way we can. So thank you very much, and thanks to Ms. Mullen for this as well.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We look forward to working with the kids starting on November 18th, and we look forward to meeting with our junior parents come January, February. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thank you. You guys all take care and have a good night.